When we are small creators, our email inbox is not very busy, and our curator page on Steam even less so. I had never noticed that there was an option to send us game directly there until I received the notification on my cell phone app that the game had been sent to me. I didn't even know where to get it, and I would certainly never notice the Order of the Snake Scale if it weren't for that feature. Don't think that I only accept it for that reason alone, especially because my first instinct was to refuse it. I don't have the time and I hate leaving work undone, but when I saw the trailer it seemed interesting on its own merit. A survival horror with Lovecraftian details, pre-rendered backgrounds reminiscent of games like the old Resident Evil were aspects that piqued my curiosity. At no point did I think I would play a candidate for Best Indie of the Year, but I realized the potential there. I already know this, and the Order of the Snake Scale confirmed me again why it's so difficult to emulate old games without them feeling, well, old. From the top of my head, I just remember Moons of Darsalon as a game that tried to reproduce something old without adding changes focused on improving our quality of life, and yet it felt fresh and natural. The Order of the Snake Scale fails to do this. In the Order of the Snake Scale, we live in a communist dystopia, an authoritarian regime in which democracy does not exist. We play as Seth Videos, a detective hired by the regime, but at the same time an anti-hero who just does it for the money, who goes to a small town to investigate the murder. This premise is the basis of the story and it's somewhat always present in the background, although it quickly seems to be half forgotten in the middle of the plot that unfolds in front of us. For about 8 hours I walked back and forth solving puzzles in a scheme surprisingly similar to a point and click, but where the logic of the vast majority of solutions was clear. I rarely tried to interact randomly with all the objects I had in hand. And that's good, because I really felt like a detective, unlike in other detective games like Detective Pikachu Returns or even Master Detective Archives Raincode, where I never felt like I was really investigating. In this game the problem was more that there were some loose ends that became forgotten during the story, something normal in a game made by just one person. Here, more than the feeling like I'm just following the plot, I felt more like in games like The Observer, a feeling exacerbated by the very design of our character, who has a little device on his eye that allows him to see an alternative reality every time we wielded our weapon. Although, in this case the device is red, which turns us into a Craigslist Terminator. It is, however, this design choice that brings me to what I like the least about the game, the controls. The Order of the Snake Scale is designed to be played with a controller, and as a PC player, although I understand that it is a game that takes us back to the past, I am no longer used to the control scheme on the controller, and even less to the controls present with the keyboard and mouse. Of course we quickly adapt to them, something that with successive updates made, and now I have to mention that at the time of writing this review the game had not yet been released, it was a perfectly usable scheme, regardless of the way you want to play. Even so, I can't help but find it strange that in 2024 there are games in which, when I press left, our character doesn't move left, but rather just turns left. And we always have to press forward afterwards to move forward. It's not intuitive, but we quickly adapt, and by combining it with the use of our pistol, we managed to alleviate this feeling. There is an inventory system, but at no point do we have to manage it, as most of the items we collect are used to solve the puzzles, and as soon as we use them they disappear. We never even came close to using all the available space. A survival horror thrives on the tension it manages to create, on that feeling of permanent fear. The Order of the Snake Scale starts well, with a dark and noir environment and soundtrack that creates tension, but we quickly realize that the music is not linked to any event, as if it were on a loop, and we lose any fear. Furthermore, we never feel a real lack of ammunition to use, even though we have to admit that we never end up with a huge amount of ammunition that we can spare. There is always more than enough for us to use without much worry. The combination of these elements removes much, if not all, of the psychological burden associated with these games. Initially, it seems that there is exploration in the game, but in reality it is an illusion, as all paths are essential for solving the game, as they lead to items that allow the solution of puzzles. I can say the same about what I called side missions, which were nothing more than another puzzle to give us access to a new item that allow us to solve another puzzle and move forward in our quest. There are also few enemies to defeat, but there is a bit secondary in the game. This is not a problem per se, since these games live on tension, not on real fighting, but here, in addition to there being few enemies, they are placed in a predictable way in a relatively small playable area. The very physics of interacting with assets is very rigid, often unrealistic, trapping us in branches or in corners of the wall where we should otherwise slide. And this is often what hinders moments of gunplay, more than their difficulty or complexity. We cannot save the game when we want, there are save points, but when we understand how to use them, we also realize that they are placed in key locations for the story. Furthermore, the map is small, and with each death we never lose much progress. Finally, I leave a note on the sound effects and sound cues. On the one hand, they are essential for us to be aware of enemies. On the other hand, they are extremely poorly calibrated when we come across machinery, since as there is no gradual increase or decrease in volume, all the perception of distance is lost. I mean, the sound or it is on or off, and that was the only thing that gave me one or two jump scares, the sudden noise of a machine at maximum volume coming from nowhere. It was surprisingly fun playing the Order of the Snake Scale. These games show why the past mostly belongs to the past. To be honest, I don't want to have to go back to games with these controls and these scenarios. Why did I finish it? Because the puzzle system is well designed and the game really makes us feel like we are investigating, even if at a certain point we no longer know exactly what we are investigating. Regardless of what each player thinks about the end of the story, the path we take to get there is intelligent, arouses curiosity and keeps us moving forward. The game is cheap, just look beyond the graphics and the repeated collection of assets and you will find an interesting project here. See you next time, guys. Bye!